7600 313-778-7600 is the call-in number if you have a question or comment. Welcome to the African History Network show. It is Sunday, April 16th, 2023, and we are live. I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep, right here on 910 AM Superstation, the Future Radio. All right. So this past week, we know that two Tennessee African-American lawmakers in the Tennessee Assembly, Representative Justin Jones, Representative Justin Pearson, were returned back to the Tennessee State Assembly after being expelled by Republican members for their protests when it comes to wanting anti-gun laws, when it comes to wanting common sense gun laws. We're going to talk about this. I was on Faraji Muhammad Show, The Culture, earlier this week to discuss this topic. And they have what the Republicans did was actually turn these two brothers into rock stars, turned them into political rock stars. They have been all over the media. NBC News has an article dealing with this. Ousted Tennessee legislator Justin Jones reinstated after Nashville council vote. And then we know he was reinstated on Tuesday, if I remember correctly. We know on a day or two later, Representative Justin Pearson was reinstated as well. Okay, so I talked about this on Faraji Muhammad Show, The Culture. We also discussed some of the history of Tennessee as well, some of the racist history of Tennessee, former Confederate state. We talked about Nathan Bedford Forrest, who was the first Grand Wizard of the Ku Klux Klan in 1867, and Nathan Bedford Forrest was a former Confederate general as well, and a former slave owner also. Now, also in the news this past week, and we talked about this on Roland Martin Unfiltered on Friday, April 14th, with attorney and legal analyst Ellie Mastal. You see Ellie Mastal on MSNBC. I was on Roland Martin Unfiltered with Ellie Mastal. We talked about Clarence Thomas. Okay, ProPublica has done a scathing report on Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas and the fact that he failed to disclose in 2014, failed to disclose a real estate deal that was done with a GOP megadonor, Harlan Crow. Okay, so we're going to talk about this also. And this deal was for 3 properties that totaled $133,000. So this is a huge ethics violation. Now, there's not a whole lot of oversight that can take place, that can happen when it comes to Supreme Court justices. Supreme Court justices can be impeached, okay, but that is, I don't think that's for a Supreme Court justice. I don't think that's happened in history. Maybe once. I don't think that's happened in history. I think one time they came close to it, but with Republicans, but you need a 2/3 majority vote in the U.S. Senate to remove a Supreme Court justice, which means you need 67 out of 100. And if there are 51 Democrats, that means you're going to need 16 Republicans. I don't see 16 Republicans doing this because most of them lack conscience and a moral compass. But we'll talk about what's going on with Clarence Thomas. More and more information, disturbing information, comes out each week. Now, at the bottom of the hour, we're going to be joined by Sister Shoshana Lumumba, as well as Tahira Ahmed, and they are from the Coalition for Property Tax Justice. They're going to talk about the Michigan Homeowners Assistance Fund, the Michigan Homeowners Assistance Fund. So you don't want to miss that either. Now, the Colfax Massacre of 1873. I did a broadcast today before my Sunday class. On Sundays, I teach a 2-hour class normally on Black resistance movements from the Haitian Revolution, U.S. Civil War, Civil Rights Movement, and Black Power Movement. And before I did the class today, I did a broadcast on Facebook and YouTube dealing with the Colfax Massacre of 1873. And this was a massacre that took place during the Reconstruction era, 1865 to 1877, and you had 150 African Americans who were killed. This was one of the worst examples of domestic terrorist violence during the Reconstruction era, and this was surrounding political power. This happened in Louisiana. This was surrounding political power. Well, the April 13th, this past week, was the 150th anniversary of the Colfax Massacre, and in Louisiana, they erected another historical marker to commemorate what happened there, and so people don't forget it. Okay, so we'll talk about a little bit about the Colfax Massacre of 1873 and what happened this past week as well. And then also I want to get to this. Okay, and we'll try to get to a couple of other topics as well. All right, now on the African History Network show, we focus on educating, empowering, and inspiring people of African descent throughout the diaspora and around the world, because right now it corrects wrong behavior. What we do for yourself, what we do to yourself, and what you allow other people to do to you and get away with is based upon what you think about yourself. What you think about yourself is based upon what you have been taught about yourself. What you've been taught about yourself is based upon everything you've read, heard, and seen about yourself. So when you control the radius of a man or woman's thoughts, you can control the circumference of his or her actions, because the mind can't do or teach what it doesn't know. Now, we deal with a number of different topics here on the African History Network show. We deal with current events, history, politics, education, economic empowerment, entrepreneurship, love, sex, health issues, and much, much more. Visit our website, TheAHNShow.com, TheAHNShow.com. And also register for our email newsletter. Text the word Kemet, K-E-M-E-T, to 22828. Text the word Kemet, K-E-M-E-T, to 22828 to sign up for our email newsletter as well. Okay, calling number is 313-462-0003. So give us a call if you have a quick question or comment. Now, Juneteenth is coming up. Juneteenth is quickly approaching. People are asking me to speak for Juneteenth. So email if you want me to do a presentation for a group or organization for Juneteenth or any other time, whether it's in person or virtually. Email me at ahnshow@theafricanhistorynetwork.com, ahnshow@theafricanhistorynetwork.com, and we can make that happen. All right, so let's jump into this topic here, dealing with what happened in Tennessee. We know that, so there was a good article from, this one here is from NBCnews.com. Tennessee Black Lawmakers are reinstated. Tennessee Black Lawmakers are reinstated. And this whole effort by Republicans in the Tennessee State Assembly to try to make examples out of these two brothers, trying to shut them up. This high-tech political lynching that they tried to implement, this is blowing up in their faces. This is blowing up in their faces because prior to what took place a couple of weeks ago, outside of Tennessee, people didn't know who these guys were. Now they're everywhere. If we look at this article here from NBCnews.com, Democrat Justin Pearson reinstated to Tennessee legislature. Pearson and fellow Democrat Justin Jones, who are Black, were expelled last week in unprecedented state house votes that drew national attention. So this article is from April 12th, 2023. Now, Memphis area officials voted on Wednesday, this past Wednesday, which was April 12th, to reinstate Tennessee Representative Justin Pearson to the Tennessee state legislature after Republicans expelled him last week for protesting gun violence on the chamber floor. After Republicans expelled him last week for protesting gun violence on the chamber floor. Now, the 7 members of the Shelby County Board of Commissioners present for the vote unanimously approved reinstating Representative Justin Pearson, at a special meeting in Memphis. Board members suspended the rules to allow for an immediate vote. Okay, now after the vote, Representative Justin Pearson addressed the commission with an enthusiastic speech. He said Nashville thought they could silence me. He said to cheers from supporters who had filled the chamber. He said, but they didn't know that Shelby County, they didn't know the Shelby County Commission, and it's fearless. He also added that he had a message for all those people in Nashville who voted to expel us. You can't expel hope. You can't expel justice. Now, we talked about this on Faraji Muhammad Show, The Culture, on the Black Star Media Network, Roland Martin's network. We're going to clip number one, Doug, Roland Martin's network. Now, this was after the Representative Justin Jones had been returned to the Tennessee State Assembly, but before Justin Pearson was returned. Let's go to clip number one, Doug.
Former Representative Justin Pearson. This is the young brother who we've seen on RMU, an articulate, very, very powerful young brother who still has not been put back into the House just yet. But we will see how Shelby County and Memphis handles the situation. I want to bring my brother Michael Imhotep into the conversation of the African History Network.com, African History Network podcast, to give us his take on what we've been seeing down in Tennessee. Brother Michael, good to talk to you, brother. How are you today?
Hey, I'm doing all right today, Faraji. How you doing?
I'm good. So this situation here turned into a whole other thing, racism being at the root of it. But first and foremost, what do you make of how everything has panned out? I mean, last week, Justin Jones was out of a job, quote unquote, in representing the people. Yesterday, he's back on the job. And people are still trying to figure out what's going to happen with Justin Pearson.
Okay, pause it right there. We'll pick this up on the other side of the break. Let's to the African History Network show right here on 910 AM, the Superstation, the Future Radio. I'm Michael Imhotep. We'll be back in a few minutes. Stand by. Back from break in 4 minutes. Stand by. Back from break in 4 minutes, everybody. Stand by. How's everybody doing? Okay, back from break in 3 minutes. Share this broadcasting on social media platforms. Back from break in 2 minutes. All right, give us a thumbs up, give us a heart, give us a like on this broadcast. Back from break in 1 minute. Be sure to register for the online classes that I teach on Saturdays and Sundays. If you missed the class that I did on Saturday, April 15th, you can still register for it. Here's the link right here. It's right on the homepage of our website, TheAfricanHistoryNetwork.com. The class is Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the MiHAF, Understand the Transatlantic Slave Trade, what they didn't teach you in school. Back from break in 1 minute. Who we have here? We have sunflowers.
The opinions and the facts. I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep. Now, we deal with a number of different topics here on the African History Network show. We do recurring events and histories and much, much more. We're going to give you an update on what's going on. This is about self-preservation. We have to extinguish the fire of white supremacy. See, elections have consequences. Catch it all right here on 910 AM Superstation.
Welcome back to the African History Network show right here on 910 AM, the Superstation. Okay, right before the break, we were talking about the two expelled African-American lawmakers in Texas, Justin Pearson and Justin Jones. We know that they have both been returned to the Tennessee State Assembly. This whole thing blew up in the faces of Republicans. And there was a lot of racism behind them being expelled. Now, we know that Representative Gloria Johnson, who was a white female, we know she was not expelled. She was saved by one vote. She was almost expelled. Okay, she was saved by one vote. We talked about this on Faraji Muhammad's show, The Culture, on the Black Star Network, Roland Martin's network. I'm on Tuesdays. We're going back to this clip here, Doug. Let's go back to the clip, please.
And people are still trying to figure out what's going to happen with Justin Pearson. But what does this say? Justin Jones said this is an attack on democracy. How do you see it, Brother Michael?
Well, this is racism pure and simple, and this falls in line with the history of Tennessee and the history of the fall of Reconstruction and the Jim Crow era after Reconstruction ends in 1877, when these former Confederate states rewrote their state constitutions to impose poll taxes and literacy tests to suppress the African-American vote, because we were voting in high percentages. And in a lot of these southern states like Mississippi, we made up, as well as South Carolina, we made up the majority of the population, and in many cases, the majority of voters. So you have a fear among these white Republicans, especially white male Republicans, that their numbers are declining population-wise in the U.S., and you have an increasing number of non-white people who are making up the population, and as well as the voters, an increasing number. Okay, so this was a total move. They said it was because of House decorum. They broke House decorum when they spoke out of turn on the House of Representatives, on the State Assembly floor for about 15 seconds. Their mics were cut off. Then they used the bullhorn. They're trying to draw attention to the mass shooting that took place at the Christian school just a week before. 6 people were killed, including 3 9-year-olds. Okay, now the Republicans in the State Assembly, they have a supermajority. Okay, it's at least 2/3 Republican. So no bill can get passed without Republicans voting for it. There's only about 25 Democrats in the State Assembly out of about 100. Okay, so they specifically did this to humiliate these brothers and to send a clear message that you're too uppity. They were trying to put them back in their place. These same white men 60, 70, 80 years ago would have been involved in a physical lynching of these 2 African-American men. So they couldn't do a physical lynching, so they did a high-tech political lynching of them. But this is backfiring on these Republicans because it's shining a spotlight on their racism. And then Gloria Johnson, the representative who was not voted out, she was saved by one vote. Okay, because they wanted to vote her out as well. So when we study the history of Tennessee, brother, and the Ku Klux Klan was founded December 24th, 1865 on Christmas Eve in Pulaski, Tennessee, and I can give you more history on Tennessee. This falls right in line with it. I'm not surprised by this at all.
I'm not surprised either. Because when this whole situation went down last week, Brother Michael, I was just like, this is Tennessee, folks. This is not like the bastion of liberalism. This is not like, the most progressive state in the country. So this is Tennessee. This is going to happen. I think people have put this into a position of, a democracy is being attacked. But they're operating from a different set of rules down there. I remember reading when Representative Faison, who serves as the chair of the House Committee in charge of this whole, that was in charge or responsible for this expulsion, when he was asked on CNN about going to the Ethics Committee, guess what? He was like, no, we didn't feel like we needed to go to the Ethics Committee. We can make our decision on our own. I went to my colleague, and we decided to make this unilateral decision on my own. So they're not playing by the same rules, Brother Michael.
Well, the Republicans are playing for keeps. Republicans don't care about democracy. Republicans are playing for control. Politics is the legal distribution of scarce wealth, power, and resources, and the writing of laws, statutes, ordinances, amendments, and treaties, their adoption, interpretation, and enforcement. Republicans don't care about the rules. They make them up as they go along. Okay, and they're fighting to maintain power. This is what we have to understand. This is why I've said on this show before, and I said on Roland Martin's show, and I said on the African History Network show, we have to stop telling, people mean well when they say this, but we have to stop telling African Americans to exercise your right to vote. You don't vote for exercise. If you want to exercise, you go to the gym and work out. You vote for power. Plain and simple. You vote for power. You vote for policies that are beneficial to you, your family, your community, your people. And what's good for African Americans is good for America in general. When we change what the goal is not to fight the good fight. The goal is not to exercise your right to vote. You don't vote for Dr. King and Fannie Lou Hamer. Yes, we need to study. Yes, we need to honor, respect them. Yes, we need to study the history of them. But you vote for power and control. When we change what the goal is, then the movements and the strategies that we put in place to bring about the goal, to bring it into fruition, will change. But as long as we keep our people thinking that you go vote for exercise and you vote for symbolism, things like this, they can just write in anybody's name. They can vote for Mickey Mouse or Donald Duck, and then you can let people get into office who are working to dismantle the legacy of John Lewis and Dr. King and Fannie Lou Hamer and Hosea Williams, etc. So we have to be smarter in how we message this also.
Oh, that's a great point. Excellent point, brother. Excellent. We don't vote to exercise. We vote for power.
We vote for power, plain and simple. Everybody understands this. Republicans held their nose and voted for Donald Trump in 2016. For many Republicans, he was not their first, second, third, fourth, or fifth choice. But they said, I watched about 100 speeches and interviews that Trump did during 2016. I reported on this for 9:10 a.m. Superstation WFDF here in Detroit that the radio station the African History Network is on. I saw numerous focus groups with Republicans, and many of them became Trump supporters. They said this is about the Supreme Court. They said this is about the federal judges. This is why they voted for Trump. They saw Trump as a means to an end. They used him as a tool to accomplish what they want. They got 3 conservative Supreme Court justices. They got 226 federal judges, which are lifetime appointments. They got Roe versus Wade overturned. This is what they were aiming for. They saw him as a means to an end. We need to understand how to use politicians as a means to an end, as a tool to accomplish what it is that we want. But to understand what it is that you want, you have to understand history, law, politics, and economics.
There it is. Look, we got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, more conversation with my brother Michael Imhotep. And I want to get your thoughts on this, folks.
Pause it right there.
Because
because we're coming up on the break also. All right. So that, we had a good discussion about that. That video is on my YouTube channel, Michael Imhotep, and our Facebook fan page, The African History Network. I've been rebroadcasting it. Also on my personal page, Michael Imhotep, and my other fan page, The Michael Imhotep Show, is there as well. And I did some additional analysis after that. After the segment on Faraji show, I did another broadcast with additional analysis that goes deeper into the history of Tennessee. It talks about how so we get into some other history. We talk about Nathan Bedford Forrest. We talk about the Fort Pillow Massacre, April 1864, during the U.S. Civil War, and about 200 African-American Union soldiers were executed by Nathan Bedford Forrest, by his regiment, by his command, his army there. Some of those African-American men were shot in the head at point blank range. Okay, so you can check that out. We're coming up on a break now. When we come back, we're going to speak with Shoshana Lumumba and Tahira Ahmed, and they are from the Coalition for Property Tax Justice. Coalition for Property Tax Justice. They're going to let us know about the Michigan Homeowners Assistance Fund, MIHAF, Michigan Homeowners Assistance Fund, and the upcoming public hearing about property tax reform ordinance. Okay, you listen to the African History Network show right here on 910 AM, the Superstation Future Radio. Michael Imhotep. We'll be back in a few minutes. Back from break in 4 minutes. Stand by. Okay, back from break in 4 minutes, everybody. Back from break in 2 minutes.
Give you an update on what's going on. This is about self-preservation. We have to extinguish the fire of white supremacy. See, that's what's our consequence.
Catch it all right here on 910 AM Superstation.
Welcome back to the African History Network show right here on 910 AM Superstation, the Future Radio. I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep. All right, it is Sunday, April 16th, 2023, and we are live. On the line, we're joined by Shoshana Lumumba and Tahira Ahmed, and they are with the Coalition for Property Tax Justice here in Michigan, Coalition for Property Tax Justice, and they're here to talk about and inform us on the Michigan Homeowners Assistance Fund. So Shoshana and Tahira, how you all doing tonight? Okay, yeah. Shoshana, are you there?
Thank you.
Okay, all right, good. Can you hear me, Shoshana?
Yeah, I can hear you well.
Okay, all right, good. Okay. Okay, can you hear me, Shoshana? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. I can hear you.
Okay, and we have to hear as well. All right, so the Coalition for Property Tax Justice. This is some very important information, and we know there have been issues with property taxes here in Wayne County going back years. So, Shoshana, tell us what's going on with this, and what is the Michigan Homeowners Assistance Fund?
Okay, so briefly, since 2009, over 100,000 homes have been foreclosed on. That's like 1 in 3 Detroit homes. They were displaced. Over 100,000 people were displaced out of their homes, and many of them foreclosed, 1 in 3. And then the city of Detroit overtaxed homeowners from 2010 through 2016, $600 million.
Right.
And the county would not have foreclosed on 25% of the lowest valued homes in those years if the city had correctly assessed its property taxes. So the city is not assessing property taxes correctly, and they're still doing it to this day. And what MiHAF is, the Michigan Housing Assistance Fund, the state of Michigan, thanks to the Coalition for Property Tax Justice, we have fought hard to get them to help people to prevent the foreclosures. And we met with Eric Capri, Wayne County Treasurer,
right,
who agreed in March to hold up on the foreclosures to allow homeowners to apply for up to $25,000 per home, to pay for one of the following 3 things: delinquent property tax, overdue mortgage, or overdue utilities. And I have those phone numbers if I can give them out.
Yes, go ahead. Give out those phone numbers.
Yeah, please call area code 313-388-9799, area code 313-388-9799, or area code 313-244-9799. 0274 to schedule an appointment to have your MiHAF application process. We don't want anyone else losing a home.
Okay, and I have the flyer up on the screen that you sent me, Shoshana. It says apply for assistance today. And it has the number there also, 313-388-9799. But we'll get this up on the lower third. We'll get the phone numbers up on the lower third of our screen on social media as well. Now, Tahira, explain to people your involvement with the Coalition for Property Tax Justice.
Yes, my involvement, and good evening, Brother Imhotep.
Yes.
What I've been involved with the coalition is to get the word out to our people and let them know that we have been illegally overtaxed. We've been, and they have stolen, illegally foreclosed our homes. A lot of people don't realize, they think maybe it's their fault. It's not your fault. They illegally overtaxed us, and they're pulling these little Jim Crow tricks to steal our homes. We had 5 years to pay property taxes. Now they have lowered it to 3 years, and then they're illegally overtaxing us at the same time and illegally foreclosing on the home. So I got involved because my mom's property that I owned was illegally overtaxed, and my primary home was illegally overtaxed. I went to the city council meetings, spoke out in public comment, rallied with Bernadette Atua-Henney with the Coalition for Property Tax Justice, and I've been working with them ever since.
Okay, excellent. Okay, now, Shoshana, you said they can apply for up to $25,000 from the state of Michigan to pay off your property tax debt. Okay, now, is that a grant or is that a loan? Explain that, those funds up to $25,000. Explain what that is.
Okay, the state of Michigan has provided a grant.
Okay.
They have allocated $242,812.17. $242,812.17 for property owners in the state of Michigan to apply for up to $25,000 per property.
Okay. So these are grants, so you don't have to pay them back, and that's good. Okay, now have you all come across why properties in Detroit, and we know a lot of African American owned properties were overtaxed, the tax assessment? Have they corrected what caused the overtaxation?
No.
So
no.
Okay, go ahead.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. Shoshana or Tahira, whichever one was speaking.
Okay, I was going to explain briefly, and then Tahira. No, they not only have not corrected it, they're still doing it. We just went through appeals with the city tax assessor's office a month ago because they're still overtaxing people. And what they're doing is they're using this formula called ECF, economic condition factor, where they're assessing people's property by neighborhood, whereas the coalition, who has went behind them, we have a sales price app where we are looking at how much similar homes to yours have sold in the neighborhood. One, we're looking at the condition of your property. Two, and we're looking at the condition of the neighborhood. So we're looking at all those factors to come up with assessment against the city's assessment, where they're just lumping all these houses in certain neighborhoods and assessing their taxes. To hear.
Go ahead, Tahir.
Yeah, they lied to us, lied to the people, telling us that they weren't overtaxing us. Alvin Horn, the mayor's man, he's saying, "Oh no, we haven't overtaxed you." They were in denial until the Detroit News ran a story, an investigation that showed that Detroiters were overtaxed $600 million
Right.
between 2009 and 2016. And the mayor said he tried to, that he was trying to make sure that he took care of the matter. And we're still in denial. They are still overtaxing us because you get overtaxed on the city level. So you have to pay your taxes, your property taxes, your first year on the city level. And if you don't pay those taxes, which is probably about $1,000, and one side note, the lowest property, the lowest assessed properties or the lowest value properties are being over-assessed more than the highest assessed properties or value properties. That's one side note. So if you don't pay your over-assessed taxes on the first year, then it goes over to the county. The city is going to tack on interest and penalties because you didn't pay that over-taxed property tax. And then it goes over to the county of Wayne County, and then they tack on extra interest and penalties. So you double tax, illegally overtax, double penalized for both the city and the county. So that's how you are still being overtaxed, because they should take us off the tax rolls for the city. We shouldn't have to pay a thing. If we've already been overtaxed, we shouldn't have to pay this year's taxes. And that's what I was saying before I got involved with the coalition. I'm saying to the mayor and the city council, why are you still taxing me? You know you're overtaxing me, but why? So the people are still being overtaxed.
Right. Okay. Stand by, ladies. We're coming up on a break. We're going to hold you over the break for a few more minutes. This is a very, very important topic. And historically, this has been one of the ways that land owned by African Americans was taken from us. It wasn't just through domestic terrorism. It was through overtaxing the properties. This is historic. It's happened across the country. Listen to the African History Network show. I'm Michael Imhotep. We'll be back in a few minutes. Stand by, bathroom break in 4 minutes. How's everybody doing? Give us a thumbs up, give us a heart, give us a like on this broadcast. Be sure to support the African History Network, $ the AHN show through Cash App, $ the AHN show through Cash App, also through PayPal, paypal.me/the AHN show. This helps us keep doing the research, stay on the air, keep broadcasting, pay some of the bills. Okay, bathroom break in 4 minutes, everybody. Okay, back from break in 2 minutes.
We deal with a number of different topics here on the After History Network Show. We do recurring events and history and much, much more. We're going to give you an update on what's going on.
This is about self-preservation. We have to extinguish the fire of white supremacy to let us have consequences. Catch it all right here on 910 AM Superstation.
Welcome back to the African History Network show right here on 910 AM, the Superstation, the Future Radio. All right, we're speaking with Shoshana Lumumba and Tahira Ahmed. They're with the Coalition for Property Tax Justice. We're going to go back to them here in just a minute. But right before the break, you know, I was talking about historically how African Americans are overtaxed when it comes to property taxes. And we know that there's an article from the Washington Post that we've discussed here on this show before. This is from June 2nd, 2020. June 2nd, 2020. The name of this article is Black Families Pay Significantly Higher Property Taxes Than White Families, New Analysis Shows. Black families pay significantly higher property taxes than white families, new analysis shows. Unfair property assessments lead to widespread overtaxation for Black Americans. Now, this is by Andrew Van Dam, July 2nd, 2020. And just briefly here, and we'll go back to Shoshana to hear in a minute so they can comment on this. It says state by state, neighborhood by neighborhood, Black families pay 13% more in property taxes each year than a white family would in the same situation. A massive new data analysis shows. Black-owned homes are consistently assessed at higher values relative to their actual sale price than white homes, according to a new working paper by economists Troop Howard of the University of Utah and Carlos Avenancio Leon of Indiana University. African Americans have long said they bear a disproportionate burden for taxes that support local police, schools, and parks, but nationwide measures of this type of systemic racism are hard to come by. Nationwide measures of this type of systemic racism are hard to come by. To expose the structural and historical factors behind these discriminatory property tax assessments, the economists analyzed more than a decade of tax assessment and sales data for 118 million homes throughout the country. 118 million homes throughout the country. Here's what they found. In almost every state, property tax assessments were higher in areas with more African American and Hispanic residents. In city after city, the authors show it is not just differences in the buildings or land, but also the racial composition. Also the racial composition of the neighborhood that matters. The gap between white families and minority households remains large, which at 10% when you combine data for Hispanic and Black families. Okay, so Shoshana and Tahira, does this coincide basically with what you have been finding, what you have been hearing, what you have been experiencing with this initiative?
Yeah, that brother Imhotep coincides exactly what I've been experiencing. I make calls for the coalition. Okay. I speak to hundreds of Detroiters, in a few weeks' time, preparing for the appeals. I spoke with a lot of Detroiters. And I get to see the records, of their property, and that is exactly. Look, they are overtaxing properties less than $100,000. Those are the hardest hit properties. The ones less than $100,000. Less than $100,000. They are overtaxing properties in like you said, the Black and brown neighborhoods. And then they also are overtaxing properties where there's only like 2 and 3 houses on the block, and there's high crime, and there's the house is in bad repair. And yes, that study just is remarkable because that's correct.
Okay, go ahead, Tahira.
Yeah, they've been overtaxing us, and Brother Imhotep, all throughout history, and as
Yes.
you eloquently have pointed out, even during the time when we were first being overassessed. They knew it then, and then they kept doing. Detroit used to be the largest Black home ownership in the United States.
Right.
Now it's the largest Black renter city in the United States. This is on purpose. It's called Negro removal and strip the Negroes of their wealth. A home is a wealth. It's wealth. A home is safety. It also anchors our communities. I remember when we went to school, walked up to school and walked back. Our kids, we had neighborhoods now. We see little kids running up and down the street. We don't have that anymore. There are sometimes there's only one or two houses on a whole block.
Right.
So this is on purpose, and they know that they're doing it. Now, what needs to be done is the federal government needs to step in, and people need to go to jail for this, Brother Imhotep.
Right.
I'm tired of complaining about what we all know is true. It's blatant racism, and people need to go to jail.
Right. Okay. Now, Shoshana, go ahead and give us the 2 phone numbers again and any websites. Well, we only have a couple minutes left in this interview. Give us the 2 phone numbers again and any websites, contact information, please.
Okay, I thank you for that. I encourage everyone to get on the phone tomorrow, and even if you're in good shape, tell your neighbors, tell your relatives, tell everybody that owns property, not just in Detroit, but in the state of Michigan, to call area code 313-388-9799. Area code 313-388-9799. And the other number is area code 313-244-0274, 313-244-0274. And that's Wayne Metro. They are processing the MiHAF application. So please call and get some help.
Another number 2. This is for the Property Tax Appeal Project.
Okay.
You can call it. It's called Property Tax Appeal Project for the Coalition for Property Tax Justice. And the phone number is 313-329-7610. Again, that number, you can text too. You can text that number too. 313-329-7610. And also you can email property tax at streetdemocracy.org.
Property
Again,
tax
that's
at what?
Property tax
Uh-huh.
at streetdemocracy.org.
Okay, Street Democracy, STREET, at streetdemocracy.org.
Yes.
Okay. All right, ladies. Look, we're out of time here. We have this information up on our screen as well, so people write this down. People around the country, even if it can't benefit you, share this with people that you know in Michigan who it will benefit. All right, Shoshana and Tahira from the Coalition for Property Tax Justice. Thanks so much for coming on the African History Network show and sharing this valuable information with our audience. Okay, you all take care. Have a good night. All right, we'll be back in a few minutes. Listen. Okay, stand by, everybody. Okay, when we come back, we're going to talk about Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas. Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas has been exposed by ProPublica, a report from ProPublica that he was involved in 3 property sales to a Republican GOP donor named Harlan Crow, but Clarence Thomas did not disclose this. He's supposed to disclose deals like this, especially if it's with the GOP donor, anything like that. He did not disclose this. We talked about this on Roland Martin Unfiltered with Elie Mystal. So we're going to talk about. I'm going to share that clip with you when we come back. Stand by. All right, stand by, everybody. Back from break in 2 minutes. Back from break in 1 minute.
Views and opinions expressed on any program are those of the producers and or the persons appearing on the program and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of 910 AM Superstation or Adele Media. We've got the topics, the guests, the opinions, and the facts.
I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep. Now, we deal with a number of different topics here on the After History Network Show. We do recurring events and histories and much, much more. We're going to give you an update on what's going on.
This is about self-preservation. We have to extinguish the fire of white supremacy. See, let's without consequences. Catch it all right here on 910 AM Superstation.
Welcome back to the African History Network show. All right, calling numbers 313-778-7600, 313-778-7600 is the calling number if you have a question or comment. Okay, well, Clarence Thomas is back in the news. So this seems to be every week a new development in ethics violations or possible ethics violations with Clarence Thomas. So there was a big story from ProPublica that came out this past week, and it came out April 13th, 2020. And this involves a billionaire GOP donor named Harlan Crow and some real estate deals, some property sales to Harlan Crow's company that Clarence Thomas was involved in, but Clarence Thomas did not disclose this in his ethics violations form or in any disclosure forms. Billionaire Harlan Crow bought property from Clarence Thomas. The justice did not disclose the deal. The justice did not disclose the deal. This is from ProPublica, ProPublica.org, April 13th, 2023. So the transaction is the first known instance of money flowing from Harlan Crow to the Supreme Court justice. The sale netted the GOP megadonor 2 vacant lots and the house where Clarence Thomas' mother was living. The house where Clarence Thomas' mother was living. So here's what happened. In 2014, one of Texas billionaire Harlan Crow's companies purchased a string of properties on a quiet residential street in Savannah, Georgia. It wasn't a marquee acquisition for the real estate magnate, just an old single-story home and 2 vacant lots down the road. What made it noteworthy were the people on the other side of the deal. Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas and his relatives. Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas and his relatives. Now, the transaction marks the first known instance of money flowing from the Republican megadonor Harlan Crow to Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas. Now, the Crow Company bought the properties for $133,000, $133,363 from 3 owners, Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas, his mother, and the family of Clarence Thomas' late brother, according to a state tax document and a deed dated October 15th, 2014, filed at the Chatham County Courthouse. Now, the purchase put Harlan Crow in an unusual position. He now owned the house where Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas' elderly mother was living. Soon after the sale was completed, contractors began work on tens of thousands of dollars of improvements on the 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom home, which looks out onto a patch of orange trees. The renovations included a carport, a repaired roof, and a new fence and gates, according to city permit records and blueprints. There's always a paper trail. Or in Donald Trump's case, there's a tweet about it. Now, a federal disclosure law passed after the Watergate incident, which ended up in Richard Nixon resigning from office, requires Supreme Court justices and other officials to disclose the details of most real estate deals over $1,000. Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas never disclosed his sale of the Savannah properties. That appears to be a violation of the law, 4 ethics law experts told ProPublica. Now, on Roland Martin Unfiltered, on Friday, April 14th, we spoke with Elie Mystal. You see Elie Mystal on MSNBC, and he is an attorney. He also writes, he was writing for The Nation. I'm not sure if he still writes for The Nation. He's an attorney and legal analyst. Let's go to clip number 2, Doug.
All right, y'all. So when the folks at ProPublica dropped the story about Clarence Thomas taking all of these expensive vacations with the billionaire Harlan Crow, the conservatives, they all ran and, nothing wrong with this. That's just a good friend of his. Now go to my iPad. Then they came back with another story that showed Harlan Crow bought a number of lots in Savannah, Georgia, including the one where Clarence Thomas's mama lives. Fixed the joint up. Oh, by the way, she didn't move. She still lived there. Elie Mystal is with The Nation joins us right now. Elie, glad to have you here. Man, so Clarence Thomas, 20 years ago, the LA Times did a big story talking about how he was taking these gifts and how he was supposed to disclose them. His way of answering that was to stop disclosing stuff at all. It's a lot of things that he has not disclosed. Okay, for folks who don't know, let's just be clear. There's little oversight of the Supreme Court. What are Supreme Court justices supposed to be disclosing to the public?
One of the only oversights we have over the Supreme Court is the public disclosure law. It's at 5 USC 131.104 that lists all of the things that judges and justices, explicitly including the Supreme Court justices, have to disclose on their financial disclosure forms every year to stop exactly this kind of public corruption, right? Now, there was some arguments that I thought were poor arguments, but arguments nonetheless, that Thomas didn't have to disclose the $500,000 of trips and vacations and resort stays that he got from Harlan Crow because they were a matter of allegedly personal hospitality. I thought that was a bogus legal argument, but it was a legal argument. Disclosing land deals is cut and dry. All right, there's no argument that Thomas did not or should not have had to disclose this man buying his mother's house, fixing his mother's house up, and having his mother stay in that house. Harlan Crow is now essentially Clarence Thomas's mother, who's still alive, God bless, is apparently her landlord, which obviously has to be disclosed under the law. So the argument that any argument that people had that Thomas was within the letter, if not the spirit of the law, that has been blown out of the water by this house buying story.
And then they've said that, but Harlan doesn't have any business before the Supreme Court, so this is no big deal. You respond?
Yeah, that's completely ridiculous. Harlan Crow is a rich Republican donor. Of course, he has interest in what comes before the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court, folks, touches everything, right? So if you have an interest in tax law, you have an interest in front of the Supreme Court. If you have the interest in the Interstate Commerce Clause, which is how the federal government is allowed to regulate businesses, you have an interest in front of the Supreme Court. But that's not all. As one of your pictures just showed, Roland, Harlan Crow wasn't just a personal bromance, all right, between Harlan and Clarence. Harlan Crow was consistently bringing other powerful, wealthy, connected Republicans to hang out with Justice Thomas at these trips during these events. All of them had various businesses before the Supreme Court and various interests in what the Supreme Court does, right? So the argument that Harlan Crow and his powerful Republican buddies, they didn't really care what Thomas was talking about, that's bunk. That does not hold any water.
And see, the thing that cracks me up about this whole thing is this idea that we're just friends. When did y'all become friends? After your ass is on the Supreme Court.
One of the dumbest parts of this is that Thomas released a statement so far, the only thing that he's said about this, saying that he and Harlan Crow have been dear friends for over 25 years, which is interesting because Clarence Thomas has been on the court for over 30 years. All right. And so obviously, whatever friendship they might have now, whether it's genuine or not, I don't know. I don't know the man. They don't invite me to Indonesia with them. Right. But whatever relationship they have now, it started with access to power. It started while Clarence Thomas was on the Supreme Court, right? And again, I go back to the mother's land deal. That is not a thing that people do, right? People do not have their rich friends buy their mother's abode. And certainly if they do, and they're a public official, they must disclose that at a bare minimum. You know, Roland, you know, it's beyond the legal stuff, right? There's some black stuff going on here too, right? Because what kind of person has their mother living in a house with a leaky roof, with that needs repairs, that needs updates? When Clarence Thomas is rich, he's a Supreme Court justice, he's gallivanting around the country with his wife, and his mama has a leaky roof? Like what? Who does that? Who does that?
And for people, again, to understand, these are the 9 most powerful people in the world. They are appointed for life. When they render decisions, that is it. That's the decision. That's the law of the land. They are supposed to be above reproach. There is no doubt that what Clarence Thomas is doing is shameful, it is foul, it is wrong. The problem I have is this attitude of Congress, just let them police themselves. Hell no! Of all people who should be subjected to rigorous examination, it's the Supreme Court.
And that's where we start to have our problems, right? Like, there is no statutory ethical guidelines that govern the Supreme Court. So literally, if you were on the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals, which is like the second highest court, or a traffic court in Peoria, Illinois, you have a statutory guidelines that you must follow. Those guidelines, for the most part, do not apply to the Supreme Court. There has been movement. Congressman Hank Johnson from Georgia, he has been pushing for ethical requirements for the Supreme Court, but he can't get Republicans, and he frankly can't get a lot of Democrats to support him in this effort. He actually has a bill that he's proposed. I think the co-sponsor is Senator Chris Murphy from Connecticut, for ethical strictures for the Supreme Court. It can't go anywhere, right? And so we are left with this situation that, because I believe Thomas did violate 5 U.S.C. 131.04, he could be investigated by the Department of Justice if Merrick Garland, is awake today. I don't know. But even if he is investigated, charged, tried, convicted, the only way to remove a Supreme Court justice from power is through the constitutional mechanism of impeachment. So exactly what we just went through with Donald Trump twice is what we would have to go through with Clarence Thomas. The only way to get a Supreme Court justice off the bench after they've been appointed for life is through constitutional impeachment. And because Kevin McCarthy, Jim Jordan, Marjorie, 3 names, that feels very unlikely to happen.
Okay, pause it right there. Doug, we're going to pick this up on the other side of the break. Okay, because when we come back, I'm going to let you hear what my response was. You listen to the African History Network show. I'm Michael Imhotep. We'll be back in a few minutes. Stand by, everybody. Back from break in 4 minutes. Back from break in 4 minutes. Back from break in 2 minutes. Stand by. 129.
The opinions and the facts.
I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep. You know, we deal with a number of different topics here on the After History Network show. We do recurring events of history and much, much more. We're going to give you an update on what's going on. This is about self-preservation. We have to extinguish the fire of white supremacy. See, elections have consequences.
Catch it all right here on 910 Superstation.
Welcome back to the African History Network show right here on 910 AM, the Superstation. Calling numbers 313-778-7600. 313-778-7600 is the call-in number if you have a question or comment. All right. Be sure to visit our website, TheAHNShow.com. TheAHNShow.com. You can register for the online history classes I teach on Saturdays and Sundays. Saturday, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the MiHAF. Kemet's one of the original names for Egypt. Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the MiHAF. Understand the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. We deal with thousands of years of history and what leads up to the transatlantic slave trade taking place as well. I do a PowerPoint presentation. We have book references, articles, video clips. We had a great class this past Saturday. We do the sessions live. All the sessions are archived and recorded. You can go back and watch it anytime. And we deal with the 800-year occupation of Europe by the Africans known as the Moors. And we go through history chronologically and see what leads up to the transatlantic slave trade taking place. The class is on sale $60, regularly $130. Even after the 12-week online course is over with, you can go back and watch it anytime. You'll still have full access. So a year from now, 2 years from now, you'll still have full access to the class. On Sundays, 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I teach Black resistance movements from the Haitian Revolution, U.S. Civil War, Civil Rights Movement, and Black Power Movement, 1800 to 1968. And we had a great class today. Our next classes will be on Sunday, April 23rd, Sunday, April 30th, May 7th, May 14th, and May 21st, 2023. We have a bundle pack where you get both classes for only $100. That's a $300 value. And there'll be, you'll receive 5 of my lectures free that will be in the video library, and you can stream those lectures. Okay, so visit our website, theafricanhistorynetwork.com. All right, I want to go back to this story dealing with Clarence Thomas. We know ProPublica broke this story. The article from ProPublica is called Harlan Crow. Let's go to this. Billionaire Harlan Crow bought property from Clarence Thomas. The justice didn't disclose the deal. This is from April 13th, 2023. We talked about this on Roland Martin Unfiltered on Friday, April 14th, with attorney and legal analyst Elie Mystal. Let's go back to this clip, please, Doug.
Through with Clarence Thomas, the only way to get a Supreme Court justice off the bench after they've been appointed for life is through constitutional impeachment. And because Kevin McCarthy, Jim Jordan, Marjorie, 3 names, that feels very unlikely to happen.
Matt Manning, you're an attorney. Matt, there are rules and there are rules. And if you're a Supreme Court justice, I am not buying this BS from Clarence Thomas. Oh, yeah, we're just buddies. I don't have to disclose these things. Bro, you took $500,000 in free trips. They've been funneling money to your wife's organization. Now we know they bought your mama's house and fixed it up, and she ain't moved.
Can y'all put that picture back up with him with the cigar, please? Can I please see that picture one more time? Okay, this is what happens, Roland, when you think you can do what white dudes do and you're not a white dude. Let's keep it straight up. That's what it is with Clarence Thomas. First off, it's grimy that your mama's living in the house with a leaky roof. You know $500,000 you have to absolutely declare, right? That's a lot of money. You absolutely need to declare it, notwithstanding any arguments that it's, quote, personal hospitality. The problem is the Supreme Court, there's absolutely no strictures, as Elie said brilliantly, no strictures whatsoever on the Supreme Court. And in fact, federal judges even below that. It's impossible to remove a federal judge outside of impeachment, which emboldens, unfortunately, somebody who is inclined to do something unethical, i.e. receive the money. Here's the problem with this, though. He can receive it. He just has to declare it. But the problem with declaring it is you can't hook the homies up if everybody knows about the homie hookup, right? So that's the problem here. He didn't disclose it because he knows he can't then make the decisions that are advantageous to cronies, people like Crow and anyone else that may be, a friend ideologically or a friend literally. So this is obvious. It's clear as day. I don't think there's any argument for it, but I think it does belie a larger conversation about, accountability on the Supreme Court and on the federal judges. And on top of all of that, I would also say that as it relates to Clarence Thomas, the people who are saying, just let him do it, that's because we know they're all doing that kind of thing, right? We know that donors are buying dinners and lunches and trips, and that Congress and politics are replete with that. So I think some of the lackadaisical approach is a self-preservation method, right? I don't want to get caught up, so I'm not going to call him foul for this very obviously foul and unethical thing that he's done.
Michael.
Roland, and thanks for having Ali Mastal on. I watch him all the time and read some of his articles. It's even worse than what we think it is, because if you read this article from ProPublica, it says the Crow Company, which is owned by Harlan Crow, bought properties for $133,000 from 3 co-owners: Clarence Thomas himself, his mother, and the family of Clarence Thomas' late brother, according to a state tax document. But also, they are, in addition to putting in tens of thousands of dollars into repairs on the home that Clarence Thomas's mother lives in, Harlan Crow's company is paying the $1,500 a year in property taxes that Clarence Thomas' the home that Clarence Thomas' mother lives in. So Thomas got money directly from this sale also. It's not just his mama living in the house. He got money directly from this sale as well. So for all you conservatives out there, including the Negro conservatives who try to brush this off, I would ask you the question. If everything was the same except 2 names were changed, if it was George Soros instead of Harlan Crow, if it was Ketanji Brown Jackson instead of Clarence Justice Thomas, what would you say then? So, I know you have Democratic senators calling for an investigation, but this is one of the reasons why elections have consequences. Elections are so important. This is why the presidency is so important, but also the Senate, because the Senate confirms Supreme Court justices. So we have to understand how all this comes together and keep these Republicans out of power.
Kelly?
It is always interesting to me whatever Clarence Thomas does, because for years, I always thought of him as a token, as a puppet. And now we have proof that he's a token and a puppet. I mean, you look at the picture of him with the cigar. I mean, he literally looks like the fly in milk. And the anecdote that we talk about when you are the only one in the room. And now we see how he even got in the room in the first place, because they needed a puppet. So I am curious to see how all of this plays out. I echo the sentiments of Matt and Michael, but nothing surprises me anymore when it comes to the cronyism and the under the table deals and how that translates into the laws that are coming down from the Supreme Court now. I am disgusted, but I'm not surprised.
Final comment, Ellie. I still crack up how they said, the left, they're attacking Clarence Thomas. Michael's point is a good one. Yeah, if this was Soros and Elaine Kagan, trust me, they would not be so dismissive.
If this is Ketanji Brown Jackson, they'll be hearing tomorrow on this stuff.
Yep.
I want to leave your viewers and listeners with this. This June, the Supreme Court is going to overturn affirmative action. Most likely, they will have their token, Clarence Thomas, write that opinion overturning affirmative action. And when Clarence Thomas does, he is going to say a lot of words about merit and how people should get where they are on their own bootstraps, and how Black people don't need any help. And it's demeaning for Black people to get extra help. Remember this day, remember this scandal when he's saying that, because that is the real kind of crucible that we are dealing with right now. This man is about to take away affirmative action, and when it turns out all this time he has been helped by rich white folks. That's the takeaway from this scandal.
All right. Ellie Mister, we appreciate it, man. Thanks a lot.
Thanks a lot for having me.
All right, folks.
Pause it right there. Pause it right there. Doug, pause it right there. Pause it right there. Stop the clip, Doug. Thank you. All right. So this is, I cannot stress enough. This is the result of elections. He was nominated by, Clarence Thomas was nominated by President George H.W. Bush, the father, 30 years ago, 30 years ago or so, to a lifetime appointment. So all those people that said in 2016, don't vote for Hillary Clinton, don't vote, just vote down ballot, things like this. That's how you got Donald Trump. Donald Trump won Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania by 78,000 votes. He won Michigan by 10,704 votes, 0.2 of a percentage point. And Republicans engaged in rampant voter suppression that took place, like the interstate cross-checking system that knocked about 1 million people off the voter rolls. And they won in the Electoral College, not because the Electoral College is trickery, it's because people don't read the U.S. Constitution and don't realize that it's not the national popular vote that matters, it's the popular vote per state that matters. And you get 270 Electoral College votes by winning the popular votes and by winning the Electoral College votes associated with each state. You win the Electoral College votes associated with each state by winning the popular vote in the state. So Donald Trump won Michigan. He got the 16 Electoral College votes associated with Michigan, and he was able to get the 270. He won Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania, the 3 battleground states. He was able to get the 270, even though Hillary Clinton had 2.9 million more popular votes. The popular vote does matter, but it's not the popular vote nationwide that matters. The total popular vote is the popular vote per state. So this is why it's important to read the U.S. Constitution, understand how the Electoral College works, understand the popular vote does matter, and understand also that it's the U.S. Senate that confirms Supreme Court justices as well as federal judges, and those are lifetime appointments, and Donald Trump got 226 federal judges confirmed as well. We keep being outmaneuvered on the political football field because we don't understand the difference between a first down and a touchdown, because we don't understand history, law, politics, and economics. Listen to the African History Network show. I'm Michael Imhotep. We'll be back in a few minutes. Stand by, back from break in 4 minutes. We're going to talk about the Colfax Massacre of 1873. Back from break in 4 minutes. Bathroom break in 3 minutes. Bathroom break in 3 minutes. Bathroom break in 2 minutes.
And the Superstation, Detroit's only African-American talk radio. The views and opinions expressed on any program are those of the producers and or the persons appearing on the program and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of 910 AM Superstation or Adele Media. We got the topics, the guests, the opinions, and the facts.
I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep. Now, we deal with a number of different topics here on the After History Network Show. We do recurring events and histories and much, much more. We're going to give you an update on what's going on. This is about self-preservation. We have to extinguish the fire of white supremacy. See, that's just our consequence.
Catch it all right here on 910 AM Superstation.
Welcome back to the African History Network show. All right. April 13th was the 150th anniversary of the Colfax Massacre that took place in Colfax, Louisiana. I did a broadcast earlier today. You can watch the broadcast in its entirety on our Facebook fan page, the African History Network, and our YouTube channel, Michael Imhotep. But here's what happened. April 13th, 1873. This is during Reconstruction. So I teach about all this history in the Sunday online class that I do, Black Resistance Movements from the Haitian Revolution, U.S. Civil War, Civil Rights Movement, Black Power Movement, 1800 to 1968. So the Colfax Massacre was one of the worst single-day events or one of the worst events of violence during the Reconstruction era. The Colfax Massacre occurred in Colfax, Louisiana on Easter Sunday, April 13th, 1873. Republicans had narrowly won the 1872 election to retain control of the state of Louisiana, but Democrats contested the results. Now, this sketch that you see here, this appeared in Harper's weekly magazine in March of 1873, and it says the Louisiana murders, gathering the dead and wounded. So this was after the Colfax Massacre. So what leads up to this? Now, historian Eric Foner, who's one of the top authorities on the Reconstruction era, and Reconstruction took place 1865 to 1877 in this country. Is the period of time right after the U.S. Civil War ends. He said the bloodiest single instance of racial carnage in the Reconstruction era. The Colfax Massacre taught many lessons, including the lengths to which some opponents of Reconstruction would go to retain their accustomed white supremacist authority, white supremacist in brackets, white supremacist authority. Now, fearful that white militias would attempt to take over local parish governments, Republican office holders occupied the Colfax courthouse. There's a description of what happened from blackpast.org that the Zen Education Project cites. Here's what happened. More than 300 armed white men, including members of white supremacist organizations such as the Knights of the White Camellia, and the Ku Klux Klan, attacked the courthouse building. Now, when the militia maneuvered a cannon to fire on the courthouse, some of the 60 black defenders fled while others surrendered. Now, when the leader of the attackers, named James Hadnot, was accidentally shot by one of his own men, the white militia responded by shooting African-American prisoners. Okay, James Hadnot, who was the leader of the attackers, he was accidentally shot by one of his own men. So in retaliation, the white militia shoot African-American prisoners. Now, those who were wounded in the earlier battle, particularly black militia members, were singled out for execution. The indiscriminate killing spread to African Americans who had not been at the courthouse and continued into the night. So this is over political power. It wasn't, they didn't fear us exercising, they feared us gaining political power and utilizing political power. Now, although federal charges were brought against several white insurgents, the Supreme Court later ruled in the United States versus Cruikshank that the 14th Amendment only applied to state actions and offered no protections against acts by individual citizens. Okay, you can read more about the Colfax Massacre here at the Zen Education Project. Now, there was a story that came out earlier this week, came out on April 14th, April 13th, April 14th. April 13th was the 150th anniversary of the Colfax Massacre. If we look at this article from NBCnews.com, a deadly massacre of the post-slavery era finally gets a suitable memorial. The new memorial lists the names of 57 black people killed in the Colfax Massacre in 1873. So here's a picture of the memorial right here. And it shows Avery Hamilton and Charles Dean. They stand next to the new monument honoring black residents killed in the Colfax Massacre in 1873. So exactly 150 years after a violent massacre left dozens of African Americans dead, the small Louisiana town where it happened is honoring its victims with a new memorial replacing a racist historical marker. A new memorial replacing a racist historical marker. Now, the original marker was placed near the Grant Parish Courthouse in Colfax, Louisiana in 1951 to document a violent confrontation between newly emancipated African-American voters and white Confederate sympathizers in town. It called the killing of dozens of black people a quote-unquote riot that marked the end of misrule in the South. Misrule in the South, MISRULE. Now that marker, that historical marker that was erected in 1951, also honored 3 white men who died. The historical marker was torn down in 2021 and was replaced on Thursday, April 13th, with a 7-foot granite monument on the 150th anniversary of the Colfax Massacre. Now, Avery Hamilton and Charles Dean Woods, leaders of the Colfax Memorial Organization, led an initiative to erect the monument, which lists the names of 57 African Americans identified in the mass killing by the racist mob on April 13th, 1873. It also features artwork reflecting the Black experience during Reconstruction by jazzmen Lee Johnson a black visual artist, Now, Wood said he felt both shocked and ashamed after learning about his great-grandfather, Bedford E. Wood's involvement in the massacre. Okay, this is Charles Dean Woods, okay, who said this. Charles Dean Woods is white. Okay, so he learned about his great-grandfather, about his involvement in this massacre. So this prompted Charles Dean Woods to work with city officials to get the original sign removed in May of 2021. Charles Dean Woods said, I was just like, what do I do about this? And he lives in Houston, Texas. He said, and when I finally found out about the marker being there, I went to Colfax and saw it in person and just, tried to figure out what to do. Okay. So here is the previous marker, historical marker that was there, and they referred to it as the Colfax riot. And it says, on this site occurred the Colfax riot, in which 3 white men and 150 Negroes were slain. Why did you list 3 white men first? There was 100. They state that it was 150 African Americans killed. Why would you say 3 white men first? This event on April 13th, 1873 marked the end of carpetbag misrule in the South. Okay, we'll talk about this on the other side of the break. The Colfax Massacre of 1873. Listen to the African History Network show. I'm Michael Imhotep. We'll be back in a few minutes. Back from break in 4 minutes. Stand by. Back from break in 4 minutes. How's everybody doing? Give us a thumbs up, give us a heart, and give us a like on this broadcast. Back from break in 2 minutes. Back from break in 1 minute. Bathroom break in 1 minute. Stand by. Welcome back to the African History Network show right here on 910 AM, the Superstation. Okay, we were talking about the Colfax Massacre of 1873, which is one of the worst examples of violence in the Reconstruction era. Doug, I'm going to email you this clip here from NBC News. Cue this up right quick. It's about 1:45. It talks about erecting the historical marker that just took place on April 13th. Okay. Let me know when you have that queued up, please. Okay. If we go back to this article here from NBCnews.com. So Charles Dean Woods, who was white, was talking about finding out that his great grandfather was involved in this massacre. And he said, I was just like, what do I do about this? And he said, and when I finally found out about the marker being there, I went to Colfax and saw it in person and just, tried to figure out what to do. End quote. Okay, so this is the old historical marker. As I said, it mentioned the 3 white men who were killed first before it mentions the 150 African Americans who were killed. And it says this event on April 13th, 1873 marked the end of carpetbag misrule, marked the end of carpetbag misrule in the South. Okay, so that term carpetbag or carpetbagger is a very loaded term, and it's a term that has a lot of disdain associated with it. If we look at this article here, and we discussed this in my classes dealing with history from 1800 to 1968, Black resistance movements from the Haitian Revolution, U.S. Civil War, Civil Rights Movement, and Black Power movement. Carpetbaggers and scallywags. This is from history.com, the official website of the History Channel. Carpetbaggers and scallywags. Okay. So this takes place during the Reconstruction era. And it says during and immediately after the U.S. Civil War is 1861, 1865, many Northerners headed to Southern states, driven by hopes of economic gain, a desire to work on behalf of the newly emancipated enslaved people, or a combination of both. Okay. Now, these carpetbaggers, whom many in the South viewed as opportunists, looking to exploit and profit from the region's misfortunes, from the South's misfortunes. These carpetbaggers supported the Republican Party and would play a central role in shaping new Southern governments during Reconstruction. In addition to carpetbaggers and freed African Americans, the majority of Republican support in the South came from white Southerners who, for various reasons, saw more of an advantage in backing the policies of Reconstruction than in opposing them. Critics refer derisively to these Southerners as scallywags. So carpetbaggers were those coming from the North who were deemed as opportunists, some coming out of genuine concern to help former slaves, others looking to exploit the misfortunes of the South for their own benefit and to profit from them. And then the scallywags, these were the Republicans basically who lived in the South. Okay. Now, in the 2 years following the assassination of President Abraham Lincoln and the end of the Civil War in April 1865, Lincoln's successor, Andrew Johnson, from Tennessee, angered many Northerners and Republican members of Congress with his conciliatory policies towards the defeated South, because he was sympathetic to the Southern slave owners he was from the South. He was from Tennessee. Freed African Americans had no role in politics, and the new Southern legislatures even passed black codes restricting their freedom and forcing them into repressive labor situations. So this is sharecropping, okay? Sharecropping, and you're going to have some Southern states that, like South Carolina, required African Americans to enter into labor contracts at the beginning of each year, restricting their freedom and forcing them into repressive labor situations, a development they strongly resisted. In the congressional elections of 1866, Northern voters rejected President Andrew Johnson's view of Reconstruction and handed a major victory to the so-called radical Republicans, the radical Republicans who now took control of Reconstruction. Okay, the U.S. Congress passage of the Reconstruction Acts of 1867 marked the beginning of the radical Reconstruction period, which would last for the next decade. That legislation divided the South into 5 military districts and outlined how new state governments based on universal male suffrage, MALE, male suffrage, for both whites and blacks were to be organized. The new state legislatures formed in 1867 and 1869 reflected the revolutionary changes brought about by the Civil War and emancipation. For the first time, African Americans and whites stood together in political life. In general, the Southern state governments formed during the period of Reconstruction represented a coalition of African Americans, recently arrived Northern whites called carpetbaggers, and Southern white Republicans called scallywags. Let's go to this clip, please, Doug, before we run out of time.
The record. That's what happened here today as the town of Colfax unveiled this new marker 150 years after the lives of dozens of black men were taken in the bloodiest Reconstruction era event ever to have happened, the Colfax Massacre.
The only thing riskier than facing painful truths is to deny or avoid them.
Flavian Toby Shelton, Jack Simmons.
Those men needed to be honored. Their names needed to be called. We wanted the world to know that they mattered.
Nobody alive today is responsible. Whether you're related to one of the people or not, you're not responsible for anything that happened in 1873. I don't think the people today are responsible for that market going up in 1950. But we're all responsible for what happens today and what happens tomorrow. Should we be lucky enough to get out of bed tomorrow?
For the generations to come, it's something to take pride in. For those who have lived with what we had before, it's nice to see again the truth come to light and not just have us regulated and brushed under the carpet and kind of set aside.
The new marker is not without its controversy, as it replaces the old marker that was outside of the Grant Parish Courthouse and taken down in 2021. But though it's been met with resistance, those in the community at today's event hope that it will be the first step in correcting history in the community and moving forward.
All right, let's pause it right there, Doug. Okay, that's going to do it for us. We're out of time here on 910 AM Superstation WFDF. Be sure to visit our website, TheAfricanHistoryNetwork.com, TheAfricanHistoryNetwork.com. You can register for the online classes that I teach on Saturdays and Sundays. Also, support us through Cash App and PayPal, $ the AHN Show through Cash App and through PayPal, paypal.me/the AHN Show. Remember, right now, it's correct wrong behavior. It's not over till we win. Wakanda forever. And we'll talk to you next week. Peace.